All right, next item on the agenda will be address Article 35, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept the conveyance by deed from the Friends of the Wareham Free Library Incorporated of certain property located at 259 Onset Avenue in that part of Wareham, Massachusetts known as Onset, on the conditions set forth in the agreement dated June 9, 2005, entitled Donation Agreement between the town of Wareham and the Spinney Memorial Incorporated and the Friends of the Wareham Free Library Incorporated, including without limitation a restriction to require the use of the property for public library purposes and uses incidental thereto, or if the town no longer requires the property for library purposes or historic preservation purposes, and that the town allow Wareham Girl Scout troops to use the meeting room and the building on the property for meetings and special events at no charge at all reasonable times and otherwise on the same terms and conditions as other non-profit organizations, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. Chair will entertain a motion for favorable action. Mrs. Bronx, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. McDonald. Discussion? Take the presentation.
Okay, I've given you a handout. What it is mostly the numbers, which is why they're on the FinCom. The Friends do propose to cover the startup costs and the first 2 years of operations. We will also do the best we can to help with the funding for the third year. We have the funds available for the first 2 in full. I want to stress that by the town accepting Spinney as a branch, it would bring our main library up to the 50 hours that is required by the state, and they will get the increased state aid of $4,608 annually. I guess the benefits that I see with the town accepting it would be one library with 2 locations. Would be, we just talked with the school about education. The closest elementary school to the Spinney, the Hammond, has no library. The children can walk to Spinney to get their books. We currently have 3 Head Start classes that come on Mondays, 3 Mondays a month, and we just spend time with them. We have a play group from the East Wareham Early Education Center that meets on that 4th Monday. In April, we're going to start Tuesday evening pajama story time for young children. We have 5 computers available for public use, which are used. Right now, the books that we have are donated books, but the town takes it over. The startup costs for putting books on the shelves and all the needs for the building to become a full functioning library will be covered by the Friends. One of the benefits is that the $25,000 spent on books to start up Spinney would go towards the state requirement for books and materials to help offset that. I hope you have all the numbers. I would like to know if there are any questions.
We've all seen the package, correct?
Yes.
That they distributed to us. So I'll open it up for questions. Mr. McDonald?
Well, I don't really have a question. I think one of the reasons, before I was on this board, I was on the library board. And the reason that I wanted to be on the library board was, part of it was something to do with Spinney, because aside from the financial numbers we're looking at, there's a social, economic impact to that library. There are people that have to ride GATRA to get across town just to get to a library, and it's not an easy trip for when you're a mother with, one that's this tall and one that's this tall. And some of the other things I guess I've noticed too is that there are things going on, programs going on over at Spinney that will help in that area as far as education. Some of the book, I've given away free books up there.
Oh yes, every child that comes in gets a free book.
So, I understand that we have 2 years of free cost, and there's distinct possibility, I don't know where the town's gonna be in 3 years. We've all seen the 5-year plan. But even if they closed operations, they still own the building. And it's a lot better shape right now than a lot of buildings in town. It's an asset. I just, I sound like I'm a member of the Friends, but I'm really not, so.
Mr. Paulson?
I have two questions. One dealing with Spinney, but that'll be my second question. But let me go to the first question. I noticed going through the library the other day that the numbers of computers have approximately doubled, at least from the last time I was there. Yet there weren't many people using them. And I'm wondering what the rationale was and is having that many computer stations. And I'll get to my second question.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Denise Medeiros, the director, is here. I would like her to answer that, since she runs our library.
Good evening. We haven't added any computers at the main library. We moved them. We had them in a different location, and we're setting up a new young adult area. So we put all the computers in that one bank all together. And those computers, on an average, are used 136 times a week, on an average. So they get a lot of use. A lot of them are getting very old, and we're going to start replacing some of them as we can. But it probably just depends on the time of day that you're in. There are, quieter times than others. So.
On to my second question, then, in this regard, Spinney, and I see my friend is here because I've asked her this question. It seems to me, just as a suggestion, but I'll ask it as a question, and I understand the economics of it, so that may be your answer. But it would seem to me that it might be worthwhile, at least for a year, to try it out, to open Spinney on Sundays. Given the type of community, the summertime, weekend crowds that we have there, people, just to see how it would work out. Again, I understand the economics of it. You don't have to, explain that to me or to the rest of us. So if you could put and I know you can't put the economics aside, but tell me, if you would, how you would feel about opening on a Sunday.
Personally, if I may, I would love to see it open on Sunday for a while, but you say the economics. The town takes the building. It would be up to the library director, and it would be up to her to allocate hours. And if any staff work on Sunday, they have to be paid double time. And that takes a chunk out of the budget. And I agree with you, but the logistics at this time to be able to do that, I don't see where it's possible.
Any other comments? Bill?
Couple of questions, if I might. Has there been any structural studies done at Spinney regarding to supporting the weight of a book rack?
The building was built to be a library. We cannot put books in the original building because we could not change the type of flooring or put the support under it, because then we would be not keeping with the historical. But the addition is built to handle books. There's lots of books on it. It will carry the weight.
Knowing the difficulty that we are facing currently this year, even supporting the current library with regards to maintenance on windows, painting, and everything else, the library board has been before capital planning several times, and it's a struggle to maintain a current library. And as I said on capital planning, to be candid with you, the town's ability to maintain the structures is growing less and less each year, mainly due to budget constraints. We just don't have the money in capital planning. And so after 3 years, the potential to turn that over to the town Given our track record of keeping up our building, it may not be the best thing for that building, because we're just doing a lousy job of keeping that stuff up.
Well, first of all, the building, the structure, the addition, I mean, even the old portion has a completely new foundation. It had to be raised, the foundation was crumbling. We're talking about basically a new building that is been occupied for less than a year. I would say that any remedial work that would need to be done to the building is probably 15 to 20 years out. Other than maybe some painting on the exterior, but
Any other questions? Mr. Cooley?
Hi, on your last page here, you have the $29,400 in startup fees, and then the 2 years of operating costs. I have the original packet that you gave to us, and the $29,440 includes all of the stuff associated to sales, including $25,000 opening day charge, okay? My question is, we pay, I guess, $25,000 a year for the main library for sales?
no,
For the program?
no, you've misunderstood. The $25,000 is to set up the book collection. The sales, I think the sales figure is $2,500.
Okay, that was my question, because that's not explained here. It just says opening day collection. It doesn't explain
Oh,
what
all
it
right,
is.
okay,
So the $25,000 is for the books, to
Books.
stock the books?
yes.
Okay, I do have a second question just for verification. On the sales program, okay, I know we pay an annual charge, okay? Are we going to pay two charges for two libraries, or one charge?
No, when you have a branch, it'll be one contract with the town for the main library and the branch, and that is the startup fee, and then there's an annual maintenance, I think, that's on there too. So that annual maintenance would be an ongoing thing.
An annual maintenance on the sales?
Yeah, that would be part of it.
A total or two different charges?
No,
for two
one,
different
it
libraries?
would be built in one entity.
Would it be more money to have a
It
second
would
branch?
go according to the hours that the branch is open. So, if it starts off opened at 12, if you eventually, wanted to improve library services in Onset, which would be fabulous going forward in 10, 15 years, that cost would go up if you add more hours and put in more books and materials. I mean, the size of the building is never going to change, so that won't affect it. But the more hours it's open, the more circulation it does would affect that. But it would only go according to the usage. So the more it got used, that fee could increase.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Through you, if I remember right, when this was, brought up in the town and everything before, I think most of the crowd had mentioned that it's all well and good, they're gonna start it up, they're gonna do it good, the money's gonna be all donated. And then if I remember what everyone said was, and then they'll dump it on the town. If I remember right, that was
You're
the
absolutely
biggest
right.
thing. So going back to that, how hard of a sell is this gonna be? Because everyone already realized that once you got it going, the buck was gonna get passed. I
Okay.
think that's gonna be a hard sell.
All right, well, the purpose from the very beginning was that the Friends would renovate, put an addition on, set it up, have it be a library, with the intent always that it would become a branch of our main library. That was the intent from day one. That's part of the contract agreement between the Friends, the Spinney Memorial Inc., and the town. So we've done what we've said we'd do, and that's been the purpose from day one. So, I mean, it's not a case of now we're dumping it on the town. This has always been the goal, to have it be a branch of the main library.
Mrs. Brown?
To follow up on what Dominic said, I mean, so many people that are at town meeting, and you know, we're sitting with the Tremont now, it's costing us, that's the biggest building and problem that the town has to carry forward. And when you folks decided to set this up several years ago, I mean, it did look well and good, and it still is a good project. It's a great project. But given the current economic turn that we're in, we can't even give what the schools need to educate our children. How do we, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, how are we going to justify a branch to the library when we can't even put a needed additional minor forest school without, you know, I'm just bringing the realities of it out to you.
Well,
How do you sell it?
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I know the town is in a terrible financial situation. We are proposing to fund it completely for 2 years. We will continue. The Friends have always worked to raise money to fund our library. And we will continue to do so. And when I say our libraries, I'm talking about our main library, or our, which we like to say is one library, two locations. But we will continue to do that and try to come up with the funds to help into the 3rd year. And we're not going to stop after there. We'll continue. We've been doing it all along. My feeling is this is a needed part of the community. It's going to help. The area wants it, but we get people from all over town that come to Spinney. We've been taking people's zip codes as they borrow books, and we're servicing all areas of town, not just the Onset area. But you have a lot of kids in that area that will use this as part of their education. They'll have something close they can walk to. They'll have the computer access to look, you know, do their research and whatever. Nobody picks up a book anymore. They all go online. But you know, it's a very little portion of the budget that it would eventually become a part of.
Maybe a little help explaining the hours, because obviously it's going to increase the hours and increase the state aid. So is Spinney open during the time the regular library is open? Is it open opposite hours? Or?
No, the way that it works with the state is it's based on the town's population. So for the population in the town of Wareham, the Wareham Free Library should be open 50 hours a week. It's currently open 40 hours a week. And there is a sheet in there that gives you the difference of what it would cost to open the main library versus the branch. So the goal would be that the branch would open the 10 hours that wouldn't be overlapping with the main library and could count towards that certification. And that's what makes the branch very cost effective. I've worked in a city that had 2 branches, in a town that had 2 branches, and the hours when budgets were tough were easier to keep and maintain for that reason, because we're talking about having a branch. It's 1,900 square feet that we can staff with 1 staff member and volunteer shelvers to have somebody else, you know, around so the person's not alone in the building. And, you know, at the main library, 3 is a minimum, 4 is nicer. Most of the time it's at least 3. It's a lot harder to staff and keep it safe and keep people. So that's definitely an advantage of having the branch to use for that reason. Not that we wouldn't advocate to bring back 50 hours a week at the main library too, because, I mean, as money becomes available. But I just wanted to mention, when you're talking about the needs, I mean, the library budget was cut in half, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. And we're nowhere near our minimum mandate for the state. You know, the state requirement now is up about 700,000, and we're getting about 400. So, I know a lot of people would like the state to just say, oh, don't worry about it, you don't have to come up with those funds. But once times start to get better economically, I don't know where that's gonna go. So it is something that's still out there that the town's gonna have to deal with. So, maybe thinking about putting an extra 40 or 50,000 into the library budget in 3.5 years from now, or 2.5 years from now, isn't such a bad idea.
Mr. Paulson?
I guess I'm kind of like a dog with a bone, an old dog with a bone, and I apologize. No, I really don't apologize. I'm coming back on the Sunday issue. Just looking at the economics of it as I see it, and you can correct me if I'm way off base on this. If it costs $50 an hour for double time, I'm just taking a figure here, and if you were to keep the library open on Sundays for 4 hours, $200 a day, and you do it for 10 weeks during the summertime, it's a couple $1,000s. Now, I know that we're not supposed to spend more money. I understand that. But with that said, and with apparently an interest in opening on Sundays, if I understand you correctly, I certainly see that as being an advantage to the town and to the population at onset. To spend a couple $1,000s potentially would seem to me to be small cheese in terms of the benefit that would accrue to the town, just to try it out for 1 year and see if it works. That's my way of looking at it.
Well, I don't think it would be off the table. Number one, we're dealing with issues, so it would have to be negotiated with the unions to see if the staff members would even be willing to work a Sunday. And I know that Sandwich right now they're supporting Sunday hours when their budget got cut through individual donations. For every donation they get, they're able to offer more Sunday hours because that's what the community wants. So, sure, I think that's, it's all out there.
I'm sorry. I don't really think I get where you're coming from, Mr. Foster.
She wants to come to the library.
It's not a bookstore where all these summer people are gonna go in and buy a book, okay? You're talking about putting more money into a budget for a free service. Okay, so I don't understand where you feel there's supposed to be a draw here. I understand that putting more money into the budget will make the state happy, but I'm sorry.
I'm not, if I might respond to that,
No, go ahead.
I'm not saying that the state happy. I can assure you of that.
Any other comments on this? All right, I guess that probably gets to be worse back there. Not just bring it up. We have a projection for the next 5 years. And that projection came out with a school budget of about $24.5 million, which we know is woefully inadequate to the point that they're going to have to put in a request for 1.1 overrides and debt exceptions. That projection said that next year our deficit is going to be $541,000, and then 2 years from now, the year that you'd say you want to turn back, the deficit would be $1.3 million. Under those circumstances, all right, since we've cut the schools at that point, we've cut probably, next year it's going to be the police department that's cut. And the year after that, it's going to be everything else is already been cut. Do you honestly believe we'll be able to sustain the spending and the main library at the same time? And also keeping in mind, you need $200,000 worth of repairs. If we were to bond that and pay for 5 years, it's $40,000 a year that needs to be put into the main library. And that $40,000 a year is what you're asking for now for the spending. We also have the situation we have no libraries in our schools. All right? And I've told you before, I'm a total advocate of the spendings. The problem is until the town addresses the problem, the spending's at high risk of being closed down 2 years from now. There's no other way to put that, and I wish I could put it differently. But the schools, public safety, all right, and the maintenance of the town, all other aspects of the town not associated with the library, etc. I mean, you're at the bottom of the list with the Council on Aging. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. Right? And I hate to say that,
I'm glad
but they have far more grant money available. They have far more grant money available for them. All right. So my concern on the issue is it's a wonderful gift. I've been to see the building. All right. And I've raised some questions. Yes, the books we have there now. It's nice when you give them away. Once it becomes a branch, you're going to have to duplicate books. You're going to have to have shuttle service, etc. There's many other operational problems that I think will take you beyond the $40,000. My question is, really to you, is do you really want to risk the building? My personal opinion is I don't want to risk the building. I want you to be there 3 years from now, and I would love to see you here 2 years from now, saying, now that you solved all your financial problems, take over the building you promised you said you would take over. And I'll even volunteer hours to help you keep it open if you maintain it as a private. All right,
Well,
that's my say.
I understand what you're saying, but we do need to fulfill our contractual requirements, which says that we have to bring it before town meeting prior to June of 2012.
I fully agree that you do. Okay?
And that's what we are doing. I mean, I would like to see it become a branch, because then we get full library services. And I understand the schools have little or no libraries. This would certainly service the children in Onset and East Wareham and the other areas. I do not want to see it closed after 2 years. You know, we're going to continue to fundraise to help both buildings, whatever way we can. I mean, obviously, we can't fix windows. We have been asked to do that. Why can't the Friends fundraise for that? But that is not something we can do, but we certainly can help with books, materials, programs, and everything else. You know, I guess maybe I'm more of have more faith in our town, and I think that once people start using Spinney, they'll continue to use it and feel it's a priority.
I would tend to agree with you, provided there's money to keep it open. Does anyone else have any other questions, comments?
Can I just make one? Because I'm here and I won't be able to sleep tonight if I don't get to say it. I've been a public librarian for many, many decades now. Worked in inner cities. Public libraries are always going to be at the bottom of the feeding pole, so to speak. And when people, the way that we've survived for hundreds of years is that people go out and they support them and they fight for them. And that's what's going to happen from this. And it's going to really be up to the people in the town what kind of library services they want to see going forward. You know, and I understand that there's a limited amount of funding, but as in the schools, I mean, these are decisions people are going to have to make. They're going to have to decide what type of community they want to live in and what kind of services they have. Now I can sleep tonight. Thank you.
Tony?
I can sleep better too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
All in favor of the motion for favorable action, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I need by hands, I can't tell how many there were. 1, 2, 3. Opposed? No abstentions. Committee votes 3, 4. It's unfavorable. 3, 4. I'm sorry, 3 for the motion, 4 against the motion. Before we go any further, is there anyone who would like to write a minority opinion on this? We said on our recommendations, we would do.
Oh, come on.
Pardon?
I'll write it, but I will.
Mr. McDonald will write a
Can I
minority
send it on
opinion.
over to,
You can write it, you can write it together.
I ain't sending it to you.
He's talking about dinner.
You can write it together also. Anyone wish to write the majority opinion? Come on, guys.
I like the way you said it.
I'll give it a shot.
I have so many to write. All right, I will edit too, don't forget.
I like the way you said that.
I'll edit both.
That it would be closed for 2 years after that. I just, you know, I know you.
That's not, Mr. Brown will write the majority. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5. All right. Article 38 is to see if the town will vote to hear and act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2013 community preservation budget, and to further to reserve for future appropriations from the Community Preservation Fund FY 2013 estimated annual revenues. The following amounts as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee: 1, $21,200 to meet the administrative expenses and all other necessary and proper expenses of the Community Preservation Committee for the fiscal year 2013. 2, 63,200 open space reserve. 3, 63,200 to historic preservation reserves. And 4, 63,200 to affordable housing reserves to do or act in a manner relative thereto. And Chair will entertain a motion for favorable action.
So moved.
Mrs. Brown, second. Do I have a second? Mr. Camerano.
Oh, sorry, where are we?
Article 38, which is the allocation of the funds. Anyone?
I called them, they're counting them. They were all the way down
Are we up?
far as the door.
Yes.
Explanation we have, this is basically is a housekeeping article. And the amounts are going into, they're allowed 5% of revenues for administrative costs. I read Article 38, are there any changes to the numbers?
No, there are none.
There are none. We have a motion and a second, any questions? Mr. Fidel?
Could you help me understand what 21,200 on administrative expenses buys us?
It's used for administration. If you give me a minute, I can find out what I've used in the past. But we do ask for an attorney to review some of our questions that are associated specifically for CPA funding issues. Right now, is it a 21E? 21A? We've been asked to do a study on the Wheelie-Antigua-Hearn property, doing a 21E study. Our admin funds would be used to fund something like that. We buy some paper to be used at the town hall copier because we do some printing there. So we buy them a case of paper or 2 cases of paper every couple years, that type of thing. I think last time I was in here, in front of, I had given a list of exactly what we have in the past been using for admin funds. We have a $2,500 monthly, $2,500 annual bill for the state, coalition, CPA coalition. That's our fee for belonging to the state organization that we go to for a lot of our questions regarding it. In the past, we've had someone write preservation restrictions, and we pay for that out of our admin funds. Last year, we had admin funds available of $39,000, and we used only just under $13,000 for it. We had someone write preservation restrictions, RFPs, and that's how we've used our funds.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 700.
What was the number on that one, Tom?
38.
Thank you.
Article 38. Article 39, see if the town will vote for the community preservation funds FY13 estimated annual revenues, the sum of $101,328 for payment of debt service on the Tremont Nail property, and further the sum of $7,223 for payment of debt service on the property known as Bryant Farm, both voted for purchase by the town meeting in April 2004, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. Chair will entertain a motion for favorable action. Mr. McDonald, second. Mr. Camerano. Discussion. Is everybody familiar with Mr. Paulson?
Just to get an update on Tremont Nail, what's going on there recently?
That's not in line with the article, please. I mean,
Well,
Do you want to know the balance? Is that what you're asking?
no, I'm not asking balance. I'd like to know what's going
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry.
we have a lot. We have a lot. We have a lot to do. I would like to stick to the article. This is for the payment of the mortgages. Normally we come up with the fall. We're doing it in the spring so that we do not have an over allocation for debt.
Okay.
With all due respect, we're asked to spend and I realize we're committed to this $101,000, but with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we're asked to do this every year, and I will continue to ask the question as to, well, what's happening? Sorry.
In such case, I think we should ask the Tremont Nail Master Plan Committee to come explain that to us. Their responsibility is the mortgage payment, not the development of the property.
In due respect to Mr. Paulson's request, this is a lot of money.
This is a mortgage. If you don't pay it, the town has to pay it. Normally what's going to happen in the past, by the way, because we just went through this, where we transferred a mortgage guarantee into another account. So if we do not pass this article, then we have to go back and redo in the budget a payment of $108,000 for the mortgage, because the town can't default. Mr. Trudell?
I understand Mr. Paulson's point of asking what's going on here, because those of us who drive by and see the plywood are curious. However, the point is, this is a payment that we are making, or the town's making. If we do want to deal with what's going on there, I think perhaps calling the CPC back, if they would come to deal with it, Tremont Mail might be in order, but to me, this is a simple, it's debt, we either approve it or we don't.
Mr. McDonald?
Balance, that was, as I said it earlier, I think that's something we need, this is a mortgage.
I had sent out a one-page summary regarding these articles last week, in which I put the balances, the debt balances of both projects on it.
Okay.
We have a debt balance of Bryant Farm of $61,000. We have a debt balance of Tremont Nail of $863,000.
They were almost there.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I knew someone would ask the question, what we have left.
Any other comments related to these mortgage payments? Questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700. Article 40 is, I move that the town vote to rescind Article 36 was voted in the spring 2011 town meeting or take any other action relative thereto. A motion for favorable action.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Trudell. The explanation is we are not able to acquire the full parcel of land described in Article 36 of the spring 2011 town meeting. The request is to rescind the article so that funding for new acquisition be known as we enter to move forward. Any other questions? Those are not buying it.
Can you just summarize what was Article 36?
That was a piece of land along the Wee Atlantic that they were
It
going to buy.
was, excuse me, Mr. Chair, it was 6 pieces of property along the along Horseshoe Pond.
Okay.
And it was a combination of, Eagle,
Okay.
Holt, and stuff like that. And altogether, the state did not come up with the supporting funds that had been expected, so we could not buy all the pieces.
Okay.
So
Thank
we
you.
went for the upland.
Mr. McDonald?
So you did buy property, you
We
just
did,
buy all of it.
we didn't buy any of it.
Okay, so the amount of money, which, whatever, did you tell us what that figure was, 36 months?
We had $375,000 that we bought, that we allocated in the last town meeting to purchase those
Right.
6 lots
Okay, so now that money goes back,
into our bucket
okay, and it just sits there.
until Article 41 is discussed.
Perfect, all right, that's where I was going. Just wanted to understand.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 700. Article 41, see if the town will vote to appropriate from the community preservation estimated annual revenues or any other monies in the community preservation fund under the category of open space pursuant to the Community Preservation Act, General Law 44B, the sum of $430,000 for the purchase and improvement of the Wheatley-Anticahern River Corridor, including associated costs of the Wheatley-Anticahern River Corridor as follows. To authorize the Wareham Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen to utilize these funds, along with any state, federal, or other outside grants and funds to acquire by purchase, gift, or otherwise for the conservation, passive recreation, in fee simple, land described as Assessor's Map 75, lots 1004 and 33 acres of parcel 1003, 96 LLC owner, total plus or minus 19.69 acres, and further authorize the Wareham Conservation Commission and/or the Board of Selectmen to grant to a nonprofit organization qualified and willing to hold such restriction or perpetual conservation restriction as required under General Law C-44B, Section 12A on said property, or take any action thereto. Here's a motion, Mr. McDonald, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Cattouli, would you like to explain?
Oh, go ahead.
It was exactly what Sandy had just said, that we had to restructure the amount of land that was purchased. This is one less lot than what we had. 21E is being conducted on the property as we speak. It's in process. Mr. Jesse Ferrero was here earlier. He's the land protection and stewardship specialist, but he had to leave us. I can send out the new maps, the revised maps, to each and every one of you if you so choose, so that you can see the reconfiguration. If you have any other questions?
But this, may I, through Mr. just to continue, this is 19 acres of upland, right on the river, right on Horseshoe Pond. It was part of that article from the prior year. So we chose the best land that, with additional $55,000 is all it's going to take in order to get these 19 acres. Because the 375 had already been voted by the town, so we're just looking for an additional 55. These 19 acres have already been subdivided into house lots. So we can save that development and save waterfront for the general public. That .33 acres on one of the lots will be set aside for parking. So we will have parking right off of Horseshoe Pond Road, I think it is, for access into the depth of this property.
Mr. McDonald?
At the risk of getting hit from a projectile, that's coming, I know.
I do not have a rubber band.
No, but she has a pen in her hand. I understand the need to protect land, and I, you know, especially wetlands, we're trying to protect our environment. But at some point in time, are we scooping up land that could possibly earn revenue for the town, or bring a new business in the town, or maybe even a hotel? I don't know. And I'm not saying you're not doing a wonderful job, because you are, but please don't throw that pen. Is there a point in time when we say, okay, we've got protected a fairly large lot of things, what about, can we develop this land for revenue purposes? Not on the wee attic, but other pieces of property. Are we spending too much money protecting and putting ourselves into a place where we're not going to have any place for a new business who may see and just as an example, a 19-acre lot, and say, you know what, I'd like to build right there, a hotel, or I'd like to build a business right there with a good view. So I'm just asking the question, please. I'm sorry.
No, it's a fair question. However, I want you to consider how much money it would cost in town services for development down there, for properties that would probably bring in families with children, impacting the school system, impacting the police department, fire, and so on and so forth, maintenance department with highway services. I think that protecting the water, and of course this is from the conservation angle, in comparison to the cost to the town in those services for a new development down there, I think would be considerable.
Okay.
So,
I
your
mean,
consideration.
you know, there is an
It's
offset.
appreciated.
There's an offset on the taxes. There's an offset on the local spending of the people say build a really nice subdivision. You know, not that you would. They're going to spend money in town. I don't know. It's a cyclical thing. But I was just curious because I think at some point in time, when you get to the point, you know, maybe people want to protect everything and not bring anything new in it. But at some point in time, there has to be a balance in order for this. You see the financial crisis we're in, and
That's what I'm
yeah.
addressing is
Well, I know, but at the same
the
time.
drain on town services.
Okay.
Go in circle, Mrs. Brown.
I just think it's 19 acres of land and it's, a lot of it's waterfront. Am I correct there?
Yes.
Boy,
That's all. Yep.
the tax revenue that could bring in, You know, the tax revenue, I think, would outweigh the services, in my opinion. And I understand the need to protect open space, but, well, we gotta find some revenue in this town to pay for what we need to have, and I just find the land is, to me, not the best way to do it right now.
Mrs. Cthulhu?
I'm just curious as to, you say this is a lot of waterfront property, what sort of use can town residents have on this property? Will there be, are you planning on trails? Is it going to be water access? Can you go down there and put a fishing pole in the water? What's the story?
And kayaking, yes. There will be, there are trails in there now. There will be more trails. There will be parking. There will be access to the water for any one of those passive recreation uses. Fishing.
Do I have to have a sticker to get down there
I
first?
don't think so.
Okay.
No, nobody's watching you.
Mr. Trudeau?
I acknowledge Mrs. Brock and Mr. McDonald's comments regarding development of property. And taxes are used to support those services, so that's the cost of doing business. However, one of the things I know that Wareham doesn't have is a really great place for a park. I said this before, I'll say it again. You go out to Northampton, they have a place called Wood Park. It was endowed to the city. They turned it over to a local, the city runs it through an organization that handles the park. Veterans go in for free, residents go in there at a nominal cost, or a picnic table by number, by place. There's a stream that runs through there. They have paddle boats. They have a little railroad for kids. You go down to Springfield and have Wood Park. We're not seeing any of these things here in this town, but I know if we don't take the property, if we don't take the steps to preserve this stuff now, it's gone for that opportunity forever. And like I can, and believe me, Larry, I know we need the revenue. But on the other hand, I know what a community park can mean to a community. I'm not saying that you turn this into a park. And we at least need to preserve some of this stuff for the opportunity to do it in the future.
Can I respond?
Yes.
I'm not saying just for this property, I'm talking about overall. At what point in time do we get where we say, okay, we have to balance that? I'm not, listen, if someone would go out there and build me bike trails, I'd be a whole lot happier riding down the road on my bicycle, because these people are coming at you and they're not paying attention. So there's no doubt in my mind, this is something we need. But just overall, I'm not saying for this property.
Mr. Paulson?
Just out of curiosity, is there, I'm somewhat familiar with the property, is there a road into the property that the town controls?
No.
So a road would have to be, something would have to be done then in order to allow cars to go into the park,
Well, yeah,
the proposed park?
if it got to that point, yes. But right now, we're only expecting the people to park off the road and then use their 2 feet to go further into the land. Somewhere down the line, now keep in mind, this is purchased by CPA funds. It is owned by the town. With CPA funds buying this property, there can be something done later using CPA funds to develop the land to do something other than just be a place to walk. But because we're using our CPA funds to do it, it would be a project to go forward to do something in the future. But it will be owned by the town. Conservation restriction will be held by a nonprofit. And when that conservation restriction is completed, we will work with them to see what can be done on that property.
Any other comments? Well, that comes to that, at the risk of having things thrown at me.
Thank God.
At the risk of having things thrown at me. We've had a number of items over the years go through open space. We've had restrictions put on, restrictions put on preservation, conservation, whatever. All right, nothing's developed. We don't have anything developed. It is an override to our tax levy. We pay an additional 3% of whatever the tax levy is, the surcharge. There are more and more uses being found for this money in other towns, such as, and I know one of the, coming up definitely is something about repair of playgrounds, et cetera, and things like that, which are highly functional for the people of the town. I don't know that reserving all the space is quite that necessary. It's not like we're in a metropolitan area where we have very, very limited space. There's a few thousand bogs out there that over time, if we wanted to have open space, we could say they were open space or sand them over, make a park, etc. I watched a very large area in Boston Harbor filled in, one of the most beautiful parks in all of New England now. There are ways to get the parks, all right, and we can do them that way. The question is do we continue to surcharge the people in the town and then find a way to spend the money, or do we need a strategic plan? I agree with Mr. McDonald. We just can't keep buying land, putting preservations on it, and then saying we'll do something with it in the future. We have some pretty ugly situations in the town right now that are the result of that type of thinking. Right? I'm not going to name them because they're highly controversial. And that's my stand on it. So, anyone else have any other comments? Mr. Trudell?
There is a space below the Tremont Dam that perhaps the CPC should look at.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I said there was a space below the
Tremont
Tremont
Dam?
Dam that perhaps the CPC should look at.
My one last comment will also be is that we're going to go out in the next few weeks, and we're going to, on bended knee, ask taxpayers to do exclusions and overrides for approximately $1.5 million. At the same time, we're coming by and saying, one nice water view for $400,000. That doesn't fit my thinking. If I vote for this one, I can't vote for the other ones. Mr. Paulson?
Well, I happen to share some of your sentiments. I also share, I actually share the sentiments of most of the people around this table in terms of the pros and cons. I am going to vote for this. I have reservations. One of the things I would like to see, frankly, is the land not be put into what I would call conservation. I would like to see, and Dave kind of suggested this, something where it's more actively used. That would be my personal preference. However, with that said, as I said, I'm going to vote for this and hope that you consider that.
Mr. Chair, just that, keep in mind that this is just an additional $55,000. We are returning $375 in a prior article. So it is not as if we're asking $430 out the door, only additional $55. And a conservation restriction can be geared toward more activity on the site. There is no boilerplate that is used from site to site. It can be discussed and be much more. I know we're trying. Keep in mind, there's also a 7-year open space plan that the town has adopted that talks about open space and being saving as much as we can. So there is a plan in place. I don't know if anybody's ever looked at it, but we got it approved by the state. Sorry, I'm done.
Mr. Camerano, to finish up on this.
The overall balance of CPC, do you have those numbers?
Yes. Okay. Okay. We have leftover from FY12 estimated revenues, $368,000. We have leftover from unallocated balances from prior years of $63,000. We have in the Affordable Housing Reserve $379,000. That's without any of these FY13 articles being processed. If all of these articles, the Article 38 and 39 would leave us a balance of $302,000 for FY13.
I may have asked this before, but how much money comes in from just the tax, and I guess you can call it a levy, if you will, the tax levy? Do you know right offhand how much of that is?
Just under 300,000. We normally do smaller. We always be conservative, and right now we're looking at $515,000 for FY13 as our estimate.
That's the total with the tax?
That's the 3% surcharge.
Okay, is there matching funds from the state
The
as well?
state right now is forecasting a matching fund of 22% for those that are in a 1% allocation. We're at 3%, and last year we ended up with 33.5% matching funds from the state. Because we're at the 3%, we get more.
Okay.
Quick math, if I heard you saying anything right, I just come up with $1.6 million for the school. I don't know if anyone else can add.
You can't spend it, but that's what doesn't matter.
Bad joke, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if we could, it is $1.6 million, so I'll go back, we're begging for overrides. Some of them in the $300,000 to $400,000 range, and there's $500,000 every year that's collected.
That's what I meant.
The overwhelming majority of the population, especially the seasonal people, I don't know what they get from it. End the conversation. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed?
Opposed.
It's 3-4. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Who's going to write the majority opinion? The negative side? You write the majority, the minority opinion?
Mine, yeah.
Mr. McDonald.
You want me to write the?
You write the minority? you write
Yes,
the-
I am.
You just confused
No, the
me.
majority opinion was a negative vote of 4.
Oh, I'm on the wrong side, then get someone else.
You want the minority?
Yeah, well, I can do it.
Are we on the same side?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you write it. Thank you. Boom.
Majority opinion?
Yeah, you're right, I'll take a shot at it.
You take a shot, and I'll let my brains out.
Somebody's gonna go out
Okay.
and keep my car or something after that.
3-4.